There are a lot of biomes in Minecraft, and in my opinion, a lot of them are underused. So today we're going to start a series where we make one build for every biome. So to get started, I'm going to do the Plains biome. The Plains is the most basic biome there is. Everyone just defaults to building here, and it makes sense too. There's no trees that you have to clear out, and the terrain is usually fairly flat, so it's really easy to build here. What I wanted to build for this biome was some sort of medieval fantasy house that uses windmills. Since the Plains mostly consists of large flat spaces, there really isn't anything to block or dampen the power of the wind. So it would make sense for anyone living here to use the wind power to power their stuff. For the body of the house, I used my standard medieval palette. On the top section, I used a mixture of wool and calcite, and on the bottom section, I used a stone gradient. What's good about this palette is that it has a lot of contrast with the environment, so it's not going to blend in with the terrain at all. What I really feel ties this house together is the roof. I decided that I wanted to go for a gradient roof on this build. I used this copper gradient going from blue to orange, because it fits with this warmer color scheme that the build already has. I also made the shape of the roof a bit taller than I usually do. Giving the house a roof this tall gives it a bit more character than just giving it the standard 2 steep roof shape or 1 steep roof shape. When I finished the house, I thought the area needed a farm out front. I gave the farm a bit of irrigation from this pond and had the water flow all the way down to the bottom of the terraces. One thing that I'm not sure everyone knows about is that you can make these pretty cool cattails by using a pane of green glass and a brown candle. I like to put these in my pond because there's not that many water plants in the game, so it really helps to give your ponds or other water features a bit of life. Alright, so now that we're done with the Plains biome, we can move on to biome number 2, the End. I wasn't quite sure what to build here for a long time. I fairly quickly got the idea that I wanted to build some sort of tower, but I had no idea how I would make it feel like it fit in the End. There aren't that many blocks that are native to the End, other than really endstone. And the thing is, if I built it out of endstone, it would just blend into the surroundings, making it hard to see. What I did to get around this is I basically just used overworld blocks. I decided that I wanted to make this tower a lighthouse. In my mind, this tower has a purpose, which sort of explains why it's not made out of End materials. Whoever built this tower would have been End explorers. And in the end, since all of it pretty much looks the same, especially out in the deep void, it would make sense for them to build something so that they can keep track of where they are. Hence, just as sailors built lighthouses to help them get back to shore from the sea, these End explorers would build lighthouses out in the void so that they knew how to get back to the End islands. And since these explorers would likely come from the overworld, it would make sense that they would bring some of their materials with them. I made these 2 little floating islands, and they each have a broken piece of a bridge on it. This would explain how people get to and from the lighthouse. At least it would before the bridge was broken. I decided that I wanted to add some chorus fruit to the island, and it made sense that I added it to the tower too. Maybe if the tower's been there long enough, the chorus fruit would start trying to grow into the building, and trying to decay some of the materials. In my head, this could have possibly been what happened to the End cities. I'm gonna be honest, this build isn't very technically complex when compared to my other builds. I mean, come on, look at it, it's just this tiny little tower. But I feel like the build has a lot of atmosphere to it, and plus I did kind of enjoy coming up with the lore that it came with. So for build number 3, I got the Soul Sand Valley. I don't know why, but when I got Soul Sand Valley, I immediately wanted to build a skull. It makes sense too, because you can find a lot of bones in the Soul Sand Valley, so it just sort of fits in. I haven't done too many complex organics. The most I've done is trees or this weird shaped paper crane I made a bit ago. For those of you who don't know, an organic is any build that isn't very blocky or has a lot of curves and different changes in directions. Typically these builds aren't buildings, and it'll be stuff like animals or plants. But every so often you'll find some weird thing out there. For example, one time someone I knew made an organic teapot. The thing that's difficult about organics in Minecraft is knowing how to make a curved line out of blocks. Plus, I was dumb and made it a bit more difficult on myself than it had to be by building it on a diagonal axis. I didn't have to do this, but I think it looked a bit cooler this way. Another thing that can make this difficult is that you have to know about anatomy. So if you're one of the people that draws portraits, this might be a bit easier for you. Unfortunately, I am not one of those people, and for some reason, the top of the head was looking weird for me. So what I did was I decided to put a stone crown on top, just to sort of cover it up. When I put it into the terrain, I decided to add a few ribs around the head. I don't know why, I just sort of thought they looked cool, but when I finished the build, I realized that they looked sort of like fingers, and now I can't unsee a little dude under the ground with little fingers sprouting from its neck. Alright, for biome number 4, we're doing the beach biome. For the beach, I'm just going to do a standard house in a tropical style. This means that I'm going to try and use a lot of warmer colors like oak wood, spruce wood, and the new mangrove wood. When I was shaping out the house, I tried to go for a lot of overhangs. This is because in real life, you'll see a lot of coastal houses be on stilts or something. This is usually because if a storm comes or some abnormally large waves, the whole house won't get completely flooded. What brings most of the character to this build, once again, is the roof. I didn't do too much with gradients or anything like that, it was mostly in the shape. I gave the spine of the roof a bit of a curve. This makes it look like the spine of the roof is bending in due to some sort of damage. Also, to fit with this, I used some random slabs throughout the roof. This gives it a bit more of a broken texture. After I finished the house, I sprinkled a few tropical plants around the area. This helps to give the atmosphere a bit more of a beachy feel. What's really helpful for things like this is recently I've been building up a little bit of a library for different types of trees. So now whenever I build a tree, I don't need to build a new one every time. Sometimes I'll have a good one saved that I can just use immediately. For biome number 5, I was doing the Ice Spikes biome. There's a lot of building potential in the Ice Spikes biome. Having a whole biome that's just dedicated to pillars of ice really helps to get the imagination going. What's really popular to see people do in this biome is to turn one of the spikes into some sort of wizard tower. But since I had already done a tower in the end, I didn't want to do another one. So what I decided to do instead was to make some sort of ice spike themed fortress. For the palette of this build, I used mostly the stone gradient and dark oak. I'm just going for using some of the basic blocks that you see in normal medieval builds, and I'm going to worry about adding a lot of the ice spikes and stuff into it afterwards. Whenever you're making some sort of ruined build, or anything with something sort of degrading or poking into it, it can help to start with a fully made build, then you can go in afterwards and start making it look like bits are coming out of it. If I added the ice spikes in the building first, then it'd be harder to figure out what's actually happening to the building, because I don't know exactly where everything was when it was first built. For fortresses or castles like these, it's really important to focus on the overall shape. Try and keep a variety of different heights. For example, in this build, it has the very low courtyard in the front. Then I'm going to add 3 towers, each of them having different heights. These different heights in the build just helps to break it up for your eyes, and it makes the whole thing just a bit easier for your eyes to digest. Those are all of the biomes I have for today though. If you have a favorite biome that you want me to do next, let me know in the comments. Also, I think it would be really cool if y'all follow along on this challenge with me. I feel like this is a really good way to get people to try out different styles than what they're used to. But that's all of the time I have for today, so I'll see y'all next time.